I glanced out the floor-to-ceiling windows of my high-rise apartment, the city lights stretching endlessly below me. My silk blouse brushed against my skin as I sipped the last bit of coffee, the bitter warmth grounding me in the present. Everything looked perfect, almost too perfect, but perfection had its secrets. The buzz of my phone made me flinch. A message from Mom. I hesitated, heart tightening. "We need to talk. Your brother is worried." I knew exactly what that meant. I could feel the old anger simmering beneath my calm exterior. The same anger I had buried under years of proving myself, of building a life they never believed I could. I let the phone sit for a moment, listening to the faint hum of traffic below, imagining the words they probably whispered to him. "Don't worry, your sister will pay for everything." The thought should have hurt more than it did. Instead, it sparked a small, almost wicked smile. They had underestimated me, as usual. They didn't see the quiet determination, the late nights, the sacrifices, the victories they would never witness unless I chose to show them. And maybe, just maybe, it was time. Time to confront the past, not with tears or pleas, but on my terms, with every ounce of strength I had quietly amassed over the years. I picked up the phone, my fingers steady now, heart racing with a mix of fear and fierce anticipation. I was 21 the night I finally understood where I stood in my family. The kitchen smelled of roasted chicken and mashed potatoes, the kind of meal that usually felt comforting. But that night, it carried a heaviness. I had just come home from my part-time job at the bookstore, still in my apron, exhausted and smelling faintly of old paper and coffee. I paused in the hallway when I heard my parents' voices. They were speaking to my brother, Daniel. "Don't worry," my father said firmly. "We'll make your sister pay everything. College loans, rent, even the down payment for your house someday. She can handle it. She owes this family for all we've done." I froze, my breath caught in my chest. Daniel chuckled nervously, like he wasn't sure if they were serious. My mother's voice followed, soft but lethal. "It's only fair. She's stronger than you. You'll need her help, and we'll make sure she understands her responsibility." The words slammed into me harder than any slap could. My hands trembled as I gripped the edge of the doorway, nails digging into the wood. They weren't planning for me to stand on my own. They were planning to use me as a safety net, a wallet, a burden bearer. I slipped quietly to my room, the taste of unshed tears stinging my throat. For the first time in my life, I realized I couldn't count on my parents to see me as their daughter. To them, I was currency. The next day, I confided in the only person who ever seemed to understand me, my grandmother, Rose. She was sitting on her porch in her worn rocking chair, knitting as always. When I told her what I'd overheard, my voice broke. Her hands stilled. She looked at me with eyes that had weathered decades of storms. "Honey," she said gently, "people will take everything from you if you let them. The trick is to build something they can't touch." Then she pressed a small silver locket into my hand. Inside was a tiny engraving, "Strength is quiet." I wore that locket every day after. And that night, lying in bed with swollen eyes, I made a decision. If they saw me as nothing more than a provider, then I would become something else entirely, someone they could never control. That was the first step toward the life I built in secret. College was brutal, not just because of the workload, but because I carried an invisible weight. Every time I saw my parents, I could feel their expectations pressing down on me. "She'll take care of us. She'll take care of him." They didn't ask about my dreams, my classes, or my long nights. They asked about my paycheck. So, I stopped sharing. I picked up shifts at the bookstore, babysat on weekends, even cleaned offices at night. Every dollar mattered. At first, it was just about survival, my tuition, my rent, my food. But soon it became something else, freedom. The turning point came during my junior year. A professor noticed how hard I worked on a business proposal assignment. "You think like an entrepreneur," she told me, her tone not condescending but impressed. She introduced me to a woman she admired, Elaine Turner, a seasoned business consultant who had built her career from nothing. Elaine became my mentor. She was sharp, brutally honest, but kind in a way that felt almost maternal. She saw potential in me that no one in my family had ever bothered to look for. When I doubted myself, she didn't coddle me. She said, "Of course it's hard. That's how you know it's worth doing." I started small, selling handmade stationery online. I spent nights designing, learning marketing tricks, packaging orders with care. I'd come home at 2 a.m., hands ink-stained and eyes burning, but my heart alive. The first $100 I made on my own business felt more powerful than any gift or allowance my parents had ever given me. From there, it snowballed. One satisfied customer became 10. 10 became hundreds. I used my savings to expand, hiring freelancers, investing in better materials, building a brand. I learned to negotiate with suppliers, to spot opportunities, to push through rejection. And slowly, success came. My first big win was when a boutique in New York placed a wholesale order. I remember staring at the email, tears filling my eyes, my chipped nail polish tapping the keyboard as if it wasn't real. From there, other shops followed, and soon, I wasn't just making ends meet. I was thriving. But I didn't tell my parents. On social media, I kept things vague. Pictures of coffee cups, sunsets, maybe a book on my desk. No sign of the late-night packing sessions, the business meetings, or the slow climb upward. I wanted my wins to be mine, not theirs to claim. Still, there were nights I broke. Nights I stared at my ceiling, wondering if I was enough, if I could really outpace the shadow of their control. Then I'd touch the locket at my neck and remember my grandmother's words, "Build something they can't touch." Years passed, and I did exactly that. I built a business then, too. I invested wisely, expanded carefully, never flashing my success publicly. By the time I turned 30, I was not only financially independent, I was wealthy in a way my parents could never have imagined. And yet, they still thought of me as the daughter who would carry their burdens. They had no idea the storm I had prepared for the day they came knocking. It happened on a Saturday morning, crisp and golden with sunlight spilling across my loft's hardwood floors. I had just finished a yoga session, hair tied back, still in leggings and a soft gray tank top, when the knock came. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, there they were, my parents, standing side by side, with Daniel just behind them. For a moment, I thought I was hallucinating. My father's expression was rigid, my mother's a mix of forced sweetness and steel, and Daniel, well, he looked sheepish as always. "We need to talk," Mom said, already pushing past me as if she still owned every space I inhabited. I didn't stop her. I simply closed the door and let them step inside. They froze almost immediately. The living room stretched before them, sunlit and curated with care. The art on the walls, pieces I'd collected from local women artists, commanded attention. The sleek furniture, the grand piano I'd bought just because I'd always dreamed of learning to play, the bookshelves lined with first editions. Everything whispered success, independence, abundance. My father cleared his throat. "Nice place," he muttered, his eyes darting across the room like he couldn't decide whether to be impressed or offended. I smiled politely. "Thank you. I worked hard for it." We sat. Or rather, they sat stiffly on the couch, while I remained standing, coffee cup in hand. Daniel spoke first. "Look, things have been rough for me lately. I've got bills piling up, student loans, you know how it is." He laughed awkwardly, looking at me like I should nod along in sympathy. Mom jumped in quickly. "And your father, and I agree it's time he stepped up. Family takes care of family, sweetheart. Daniel needs help, and you're in the best position to give it." Her tone was syrupy, but her eyes were sharp. I set my cup down on the marble counter, the clink echoing in the silence. "You mean like when you told Daniel, don't worry, we'll make your sister pay everything? Like that kind of help?" The color drained from my mother's face. My father shifted uncomfortably. Daniel looked between us, confused. "You heard that?" Mom whispered. "I did," I said calmly, though inside my chest, my heart thundered. And I never forgot it. Silence. I walked slowly across the room, letting the click of my heels punctuate each step. "You thought I was weak enough to be used. But what you never understood is that I don't bend the way you assumed. I break patterns. I build my own. I stopped in front of them, gesturing lightly around the loft. Everything you see here? I earned it. Every dime, every inch, every sleepless night that brought me here, it was mine. Not yours. Not Daniel's. Mine. Daniel blinked, finally taking in the surroundings. Wait, you own this place? Like all this? I let out a small laugh. Daniel, this is just one property. I own 3 businesses, 2 condos, and a portfolio that keeps me more than comfortable. I don't say that to brag. I say it so you understand something clearly. I don't need you. And I certainly don't need to fund your mistakes. The room went silent except for the faint hum of the city outside. My mother's lips trembled like she wanted to argue but couldn't find the words. My father looked at me as if I'd become a stranger overnight. I let them sit in that stunned silence, watching the reality sink in. For years, they had imagined me as their fallback plan. Now, they were face to face with a woman who had outgrown every expectation they ever placed on her. And for the first time, I saw something in their eyes I had never seen before. Respect. Mixed with shame, maybe even fear, but respect nonetheless. I let the silence stretch until it became unbearable. My parents fidgeted on the couch, Daniel stared at the floor, and for once, no one dared to speak over me. Finally, I broke it. My voice was steady, firm, but not cruel. You came here today thinking I would bail Daniel out, that I would hand over money like it was my duty, but those days are gone. If you want anything from me, it will be on my terms. My father bristled. Terms? We're your parents. I met his gaze evenly. Parents protect. Parents support. You turned me into a resource. So yes, terms. Because I don't hand out blank checks anymore. I turned to Daniel. He flinched, like he already knew what was coming. Daniel, I'll help with one condition. You enroll in financial counseling and stick with it. No more late payments, no more reckless spending, no more excuses. You want help, you learn responsibility. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it again. His shoulders slumped. Fine, he muttered, though his voice carried no conviction. Then I looked at my mother. Her expression wavered between indignation and guilt. Mom, you don't get to guilt-trip me into being your safety net anymore. If you want to be part of my life, you'll treat me as your equal, not as a bank account in heels. Respect is the price of admission. Her lips pressed tight, but she didn't argue. Finally, I turned to my father. And you will stop pitting us against each other. You will stop telling Daniel I owe him, or that I'll cover for him. You will stop speaking about me as if I am a burden bearer instead of a daughter. If you can't do that, then you don't get to see this life I've built. His jaw clenched, his pride warring with his silence. I didn't expect him to admit wrongdoing, he wasn't that kind of man. But he nodded stiffly, and that was enough. I straightened my shoulders. I am not saying I'll never help. But if I do, it won't be because you demanded it. It will be because it aligns with the woman I've become. Compassion is my choice, not your entitlement. The room stayed still, heavy with unspoken emotions. I felt a strange mixture rising inside me, relief, sadness, but also power. For the first time, I wasn't the trembling daughter hiding in her room after overhearing their plans. I was the woman setting boundaries, making them see me for who I truly was. Daniel finally lifted his eyes to mine. You've changed, he whispered. I smiled softly, though my voice stayed strong. No, Daniel. I just stopped letting you all define me. For the first time in years, I felt the weight shift. They weren't the ones holding power anymore, I was. And I intended to wield it with both firmness and grace. The days after our confrontation felt strangely calm, like a storm had passed and left the air cleaner. My parents didn't call right away, and Daniel sent only a short message. I signed up for counseling. Don't know if I'll stick with it, but I'm trying. It wasn't much, but it was something. A week later, my mother stopped by, this time alone. She didn't come inside at first. She just stood in the hallway, twisting her hands, before finally whispering, I'm sorry. Her voice cracked on the words, and for the first time, I saw her not as the mother who had dismissed me, but as a woman carrying her own regrets. I didn't rush to embrace her, but I did open the door wider. "Come in," I said gently. We talked for hours. Not about money, not about Daniel, but about her childhood, her fears, the way she thought she was protecting me by making me strong, even if her methods left scars. It wasn't a perfect reconciliation, but it was a beginning. As for my father, change came slower. He didn't apologize outright, but he stopped making comments about my responsibilities. He began asking about my businesses, not to belittle, but with genuine curiosity. It was awkward, halting, but it was progress. And Daniel, well, he surprised me the most. He sent me screenshots of his counseling sessions, of his attempts to budget. He slipped up more than once, but he kept trying. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was carrying him. He was learning to carry himself. One evening, I sat by the window of my loft, the city glowing beneath me, the silver locket warm against my skin. I opened it, tracing the engraving with my thumb. "Strength is quiet." My grandmother's words, the anchor that had kept me steady when everything else threatened to pull me under. Strength hadn't meant being their provider, their shield, their financial plan. It had meant building a life they couldn't control, standing tall enough to draw boundaries, and still keeping my heart open enough to forgive, without forgetting. I realized then that my journey wasn't just about proving them wrong. It was about proving myself right. That I could rise, that I could define my own worth, that I could choose compassion without sacrificing self-respect. I took a deep breath, watching the last light fade into the horizon. For the first time, I felt whole, not because of what I had built, but because of who I had become. And in that moment, I knew the truth I would carry forever. I wasn't the sister who paid everything. I was the woman who made them pay attention.